I guess we'll give everybody a little bit more time to trickle in here and see what we got going on.
Yeah, we should. At least let's wait until we make sure we have a quorum.
Yes.
I'm going to be feeding my face, so I'll turn my sound off.
10-4.
It looks like we are getting there, Dustin.
Yes, sir. We're not quite there yet. I've been taking a quick attendance as we go. Getting close to the end of the list. All right, looks like we can rock and roll now.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Roger. I am Roger Herring. I am the alternate the chair of the IFC TAG, and welcome to the June 4th, 2024 meeting. There are some introductions. I know that we have at least one new member in attendance, Samir Mokashi, who is a subject matter expert. Is that correct, Dustin?
Yes, sir. He's on the general public subject matter expert, and also Seth Henderson.
Okay, okay. So welcome, both of you.
Thanks, good to be here.
On the agenda, review and approve the agenda. I see we've got pretty much all of the remaining chapters listed.
Should we complete a roll call real quick just for the good
yes.
order?
Please do.
Okay. All right, Chair Alternate Roger Haringa. Present.
I'm here.
Architect Primary Ning Wang. I'm not seeing her in the attendees list. Architect Alternate Jacob Liddycoat. Also not seeing him present. Building Official Primary Quinn Tai.
Present.
Thank you. Building Official Alternate Ray Shipman.
I am here.
Thank you. Fire Official Fire Marshal Primary Ken Brulette.
Present.
Thank you. Cities and Counties Primary Hugo Sotelo.
Present.
Thank you. Home Builders, Affordable Housing Developers Primary Mike Nykrom. Not seeing him in our attendees list. General Contractor or Developer Bill Mybush.
Present.
Thank you. Manufacturer Supplier Primary Ricky Campbell.
Present.
Thank you. Fire Protection Engineer Primary Walker Danucci.
Present.
For the alternate, Dave Cocott.
Present.
Fire Sprinkler Industry Sean Morgan for the primary. Not seeing him in our group today. For the alternate, Kevin Marr.
Present.
Thank you. For General Public SME Primary, Samir Mokashi.
Present.
Thank you. And for the alternate, Seth Henderson.
Present.
Thank you. Fire Alarm Industry Primary, David Mao.
Present.
For the alternate, Zachary Tuck. Not in our guest list today. And then for Fire Chief Primary, Lance Dahl.
Here.
Thank you. And with that, we have more than a quorum today.
Great. So the agenda has been posted. Could I, oh, Ken has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know if this was purposeful or not, but it shows review work completed on item 4. But the only documents that were attached was for 49. Was that purposeful, Dustin?
So as we left out of the last week, we hadn't gotten a lot of those. So over the weekend and just yesterday, we got documents in to review today. Let me share the chapter assignment list, and that'll kind of visualize for you guys what we have in to review today. And if we want to amend the agenda to reduce down to what we have in this spreadsheet, that'll work.
Yeah, I was just worried again that, we're trying to get out the paperwork so people from the public can review it prior to us discussing it, and it's just difficult when it's not there.
I hear you. So, in this spreadsheet here, we have everything in yellow.
Dustin, you're still showing the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't confirm my screen share. Is everybody seeing the spreadsheet now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So in this spreadsheet, I actually also emailed this all out to everybody earlier today. Everything in yellow here, we have available to review today. Anything that's in orange here, we are still waiting on those chapters back from folks. And anything in green, we have approved and moved towards our master document. And so we've got chapters 1 through 6, and I have a chapter 0 on here. This is kind of the preface of the code book, where there's some amendments in there in the publication that's not contained in our WAC, and I have that ready to review as well.
So going back to the agenda, we do need a motion to approve the agenda. Ken, are you suggesting we modify it to review the work provided in the attachment, or, those chapters available? However you want.
It's whatever you would like to do. I just, I know that there's other people on this call too, besides just the tag, and they did not have the opportunity to review all the chapters because there's no other material for them to open up. So I just think I don't know what to say. I'm just throwing it out there. And if everybody's comfortable with just reviewing it, then we'll just review it as we do with every meeting. It just would have been nice if we could have had something so the public could have looked at.
I agree with you, Ken, and I appreciate you bringing it up. I believe it's the OPMA concern that we are providing information for the public to review. My only comment is what the work we are doing is only creating a report at this point, and all of the code information, there are going to be many opportunities for the public to review both the current code and our recommendations as far as readopting or not readopting the WAC amendments that we've already made. So I am sensitive to wanting to make sure that we're providing information to the public. It's also we're cramming a whole lot of work into a short period here to get this report done to send to the full council and then get it out and publish it for everybody. So I appreciate the concern.
Well, I'll just continue the concern a little bit more. So as a member of the tag, though, if I wanted to review the information provided, how could I do that?
I would suggest that if you are not the person that went through the initial review, that you would have the opportunity, if you had concerns, if we went through a chapter and this is the first time you looked at it, and after the meeting you had concerns that you thought of rather than, and didn't have the opportunity to bring it up at the meeting, I believe that we would have the opportunity at a subsequent meeting to say, for you to raise the flag and say, you know what, I know we sent this to the report, but I have one more concern that I would like to bring up. So,
Okay, I understand. All right, thanks.
And, apologies for not getting these up in a more timely manner. We're just like Roger said, we're trying to get it all crammed in there, and I know getting it uploaded is a small step, but it is a step I could have taken. But I was trying to cram out these chapters here over the weekend, so I didn't get to doing that. So apologies on my part.
Dave, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I recognize that we will have more opportunity to provide comments on these. This is just for the report. So I would like to make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
This is Kevin, all second.
Thanks, Kevin. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any- Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda is review and approve the minutes from May 28th. This was published, but if you could go through and
This is Quinn. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
okay. Do I have a
Walker, I'll
second?
second.
Thanks, Walker. Dave, you have your hand up. Does that make a comment or?
I may have made an error as an alternate. Can I make motions?
I
Uh,
believe so.
what's that, Dustin?
Well, I believe so. If you're I guess if your primary is here, no, I
Right,
don't think
and
the
my-
bylaws specifically speak to that one.
Yeah, my primary is here, so unfortunately that would negate the approval of the agenda.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, so let's go back to item 2 because we did not appropriately pass the agenda. So Walker has made a motion. And I don't remember who the second was.
It was Kevin.
Kevin, do you still second to approve the agenda?
Yes.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry about that, but I do want to make sure we do it properly. And I bounce between voting and not voting, so it gets challenging sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you, Dave.
So let's see, Walker also, going back to item number 4, which is approve the minutes. So Walker had made a motion to approve the minutes, I believe, Walker, didn't you?
Quinn was the first, and then Walker was the second.
Okay. So is there any other discussion on the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so now we are on item 4 on the agenda, which is review of work completed and received by staff. And since we are making sure we are trying to run this meeting appropriately, both the review of the minutes and this work we're doing, there is public comment on the agenda. So I know of at least one person who is here from the public. Any public members, please feel free to raise your hand at any point and contribute if you would like. So with that, Dustin, I'm going to turn it over. I don't know what order you want to go through.
I figured that we would go in them from the lowest, from the beginning of the book towards the back with what we have today. And I'm prepared to start with the preface, and that one should be a pretty quick one to move through.
Okay.
All right, so let me get it all here on one screen. Okay. All right, so we should be looking at my screen. I've got the preface and table of contents up here on the right and my spreadsheets here on the left. Just so folks aren't confused by what they're seeing. In between each line, I have code text that was going to be in the books pasted in here. This is kind of what our final report is going to look like. And as we go through, I'll be running the code on the right, and you should just see the duplicative language here on the left. So,
Can I, okay, so I just want to make clear, this is the 2024. I wanted to make sure you were on, the one on the right is the current proposed 2024 IFC.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I didn't see that. Okay.
All right, so our first one, since we don't have wax or code numbers to go with this one, these ones are just by the page numbers of this document. So the first amendment is to update to the November 1st here of 2026. Shouldn't be any big issue there. Within the next one on page 4, we are updating the preface, pretty much just changing from the 2024 cycle in here to 2027 cycle. This is kind of a notice of when our next code cycle will begin. I have also updated here this phone number. It's no longer a valid number here at the SBCC staff, and I just struck it out from this section. And then we have some more updates here in the effective date. We have a proposed adoption date, but I've left it here blank to be edited here right before publication. And our intended effective date is November 1st of 2026 for this code cycle. And the bulk of what's going on in this chapter or I guess the preface is just updating some dates and things like that throughout the code. I did, let's see, on page 8, where am I at? I was making a suggestion for discussion amongst everybody whether or not we should put a bracketed WA in front of code sections that have Washington State amendments, just to help spotlight them a little bit more. In printed versions, there will not be any colorized sections, so it might be prudent to do that. Quinn, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. So are we changing our rules or WAC? Because in the past we've always adopted codes in July 1st. So is that a new change now that it's going to be November?
That's when we the implementation date has changed, the adoption date is not changing. And I'd have to go back and look at the specific meeting minutes, but at a meeting, I believe in
It was a council meeting.
yes,
The council, the SBC council approved those dates.
So is that moving forward for all the code cycles, or is it just for the 2024?
That's
I guess it could be revisited in the next code cycle.
It's only for the 2024, Quinn, but we are trying to also, there's always this challenge at the end of a code cycle. Well, we need to make sure we can educate everybody about the changes, and so there was a long discussion at one of our council meetings 3 or 4 months ago, and that was when we approved the schedule that's been published on the SBCC website. Those were the dates that we approved. So
got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And this is just a suggestion for later on. Do we want to indicate in the before the code sections that we have amendments? Should we indicate them as Washington amendment sections? There'll be some other margin markings and things like that, but just in line with some of these other ones, so we can see where these code sections come from. It might make it easier for the end code user if we had this marking in there. It's not, Dave?
I don't really see an issue with that as long as it's throughout all the codes, obviously.
That is going to be my kind of suggestion, but I think it'll be maybe something we bring up in front of the council to trickle down to all the codes from there. Right now, this is the only mention of it anywhere in any of our documents is just right here. All right. In page 14, where do we get to? 14, we have the inclusion of chapter 49 in here. So we have some amendments for the reserve sections and just keep chapter 49 in there. In the table of contents on page 27, we have similar change for chapter 49. Inserting that one in here. I have the page number left blank. That'll be part of the editorial process in the very end with the ICC identifying all that. Then we're going to get into our first whack, which is on let's pass the table of contents, but this is whack 5154A-001. I don't have any changes to propose for that one. 002, no changes for that one. In 003, we'll update from 21 to the 2024 edition of the International Fire Code. And for 007, I have no updates needed for that section. For the implementation date, we would need to update to November 1st, 2026. And that brings me to the end of this section. Dave, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I believe at the beginning of that top, that page, you had WAC 51554A. An extra 5 up there.
Oh, thank you. All right. So with that one, that finishes chapter 00. And we could entertain a motion to add this to our master document.
Samir, you've got your hand up.
So on page 1, the print date is the IFC print date. Does that change with this or with the Washington State amendments, or it keeps the first print date as the same one?
It'll likely change with this one, but that's kind of something I would be discussing with ICC and as far as what they're putting in that section. I was really just trying to hit the stuff that have been in the 2021 versions. These sections that are notated in green are the sections that are modified as compared to the model code version, and this wasn't indicated as a change on that print date.
Okay, so maybe you want to do it as a underline blank one like you did to some other one, or leave it as October was the question.
We can definitely mark that up. Ken, you have your hand up?
Hey, yeah, you mentioned updating the tables to show our state of Washington specific chapter. But were you also adding in where it lists the chapters and then a description of each one? Did you have a description? I don't know if I didn't see
Yes, I
that.
had that one in there. So it's just for chapter 49 on that one. And let me scroll back down to it. So in 49, it doesn't have a very long description, but this is what we have in the 2021 version for this section as well. And I would be happy to include a larger description of what that is.
I would, like we were doing with the state amendments, I think we would want to reference the adopted edition. So maybe a parenthesis 2013 at the end of 130 there. I've been doing it at the end in parentheses.
Okay.
But don't have to if that's like you mentioned. But
yeah. So Dave, you have your hand up, but I guess I'm curious, Ken, are you?
Yeah, because I'm looking at the 21 Washington State Fire Code on ICC's website, and I guess we didn't do the table under chapter topics. We did not do any amendments there.
In here?
Yeah, is that still, you're still not doing anything there?
We haven't had any on there, so this is kind of my existing amendments report and significant changes. If we want to make these changes in here, we definitely could do that.
Okay, so is that going to have to be a code change proposal to be done, or is that something we can just do administratively by just cleaning this up a little bit?
I think it's just a administrative editorial thing in here, but if you give me a chance, I can reach out to Dirk and make sure that we don't need code change proposals for these sections that we had published last year and had no proposals for those sections that were published and changed,
Okay,
or last code
All right.
cycle, I should say.
okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead and back up to the page 1. I think I caught another one here as you come down, as they were adding, includes Washington State amendments for 5150. Should that be 54A?
That's correct.
I know the building code wants to do all the codes, but yeah, gotta have our own.
Well, I appreciate the eyes on that one. Thank you.
And Dustin, remind me, this is the first time. Let me make sure that I've got this correct. So this is the first time that ICC is going to be publishing a combined a Washington State code that includes the amendments. Is that correct?
No, this will be the second time that that happens. So the 2021 version is an incorporated code on the ICC website. What the big difference will be, this will be the first cycle where all of this isn't incorporated into the WAC. We're moving towards a adoption solely by reference, and we're still working that a whole process out with the code revisor to make sure we're good. It's kind of in our court right now with Dirk analyzing what we are looking to do and making sure it complies with all the regulations that we need to follow on that one.
Because I think that part of the answer to Dave's question is broader for all the codes. You know, what is administrative? I certainly think appendix and that type of thing, if we can make editorial changes on the appendix that are not substantive, and it makes it the end product is going to be a much better product for people to use. So we'll kind of need we'll need to have Dirk weigh in on that for all of the codes.
Okay.
So
Then after this meeting today, I will reach out to him and have some, hopefully
Okay.
by the next time we meet. All right. So does anybody else want to look at any other section of the preface and table of contents here?
If we could scroll down slowly through it, that'd be great.
Yes. Do we want to go a little faster or slower or appropriate speed?
I think you're doing well. Thank you.
Curiosity question. In the code development process, it describes the I code process, not the Washington State code process. Is that intentional?
So are you asking, is our development process different?
In the preface, it talks about code development process and it talks about I code development process, but not about the Washington State code development process. Since this will be a combined code, is it intended to keep it as I code process?
Well, there's something that we could entertain changing and adding a section in there for the Washington code process. But at the moment, it's intentional that I didn't put the Washington process in here.
I'm good now if everybody else is.
Dustin, are you thinking that we are going to approve each chapter as we go, or?
That's kind of what I was hoping to do. That way we have a clear, decision process on what we're doing. And for those that are new here, once we approve these, this isn't the final approval by this body before it goes up the food chain towards the council. We're approving these documents for inclusion in our master documents. And the master document is going to be this report here on the left, all combined with everything in there, one big report to re-review. We'll have one more opportunity to just look at everything as a whole. If anybody has a specific section upon review in this report they want to take a look at and talk about again, there will be another time to do that here right before we get that ready to go to the committees.
I would suggest the tag, since we don't have chapter 0 on the agenda, we just combine chapter 0 and chapter 1 for a vote.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Dave. I'm also going to suggest to everybody my intent at the council, I am on the, what is it, the BF, whatever the standing committees.
RW.
Yeah. Approval at both at that level and at the council level. I will want to recognize that it's an ongoing work. There may be, 2 months from now, we may see something in these codes that should have been flagged as a significant change, for instance. And my hope is that there will be a process for, okay, bring that back up and we'll bring it before the tag will identify it and then bring it before the full council. So even the report that we do, the final report, I think there will be an opportunity for us to amend that if we feel we need to moving forward. So if there are no other, let's see, Dustin is downloading something.
The next is chapter 1.
Oh, okay. Then let's move into chapter 1 and go through the same.
Open. Here we go. We'll close that one. Close that one. Apologies, this is taking so long. Come on. There it goes. Okay, so for existing amendments within chapter 1, we have a few, not necessarily significant, but anytime there's a new section in here, I've pulled it into the report. But for our existing amendments, we have them in chapter or section 105 only. And I don't think that I have anything. I guess I do have some stuff. So we'll go over significant changes in 104. As far as looking at and cheating off of Ken's report that he gave, we don't have a lot of information in here to be considered significant. These are just all new sections in here, so for the most part, looking at them, we have no cost, no amendments needed for 104.2, 104.2.1, 104.2.2.1, and its subsections here. The first one that we might want to consider an amendment to, I think I have some notes on this one as well. This is one that Ken pointed out in his report. Do we need to review the ICC performance code on 104.2.3? This section is new here, and the performance code is something that we don't have in our current stuff. So that'd be my first question for the tag. Do we want to add a review of the ICC performance code?
Are you mandating that could be followed? Typically, that's not been the process. There is chapter 50 has performance outline for hazardous materials that is there in the body of the code. And then the alternate, the design or the expert presenting it presents their criteria, but we have not typically gone to the performance code. Are you intending that that be done?
Well, it's just referenced here in the exception. It's something that we haven't done in the past. And if we need an amendment, we can pull that section out here. I'm really going off of the expertise of Ken on this one. I probably wouldn't have caught this as something to consider for additional consideration.
Typically, we have not used performance-based code, and putting that as a requirement would be a burden.
Well, it's listed in the exception, so I think the way it's written now would leave the option for a proposer to base a proposal on the ICC performance code.
I see.
Am I correct, Ken? Let me know if I'm missing something.
Hugo, you have your hand up?
You may be right, Samir.
If you're talking at us.
Oh, sorry. The language there in 104.2.3.1, I think helps the AHJ determine what method they want to pursue. So if they want to utilize the performance code, they can do so. If not, that's in their authority and discretion to do.
So would it be the recommendation of the tag that we don't need an amendment for this section and let the AHJs make a determination if they want to comply with the performance code?
I agree with that.
Yeah, and actually rereading, I do kind of agree with Samir, the way the exception's worded. It does say that an alternate being proposed would have to comply with the ICC performance code. You may be right, Samir. Maybe best to strike out that.
Yeah, just striking that out, keeping 2.3.1 makes sense because 2.3.1 does allow that.
So strike the exception would be the recommendation that we would potentially want to put forward on this one?
I think part of the exception, I think it'd just be from the word complying on that you'd want to strike.
And then what
I'd like to hear
language
from
may
Ken,
exist
Ken's got
in
it.
the IBC?
I'd have to go back and look at that one specifically. Ken, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I apologize. I have to jump off the call. I don't know if it's going to mess up the quorum or not, but I got something higher. Somebody higher up asking for me. So, all right, I'll try to get back on.
Okay.
My thought, Dustin, was that we want to strike out complying with the International Code Council.
Strike out that section right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Walker, why not just delete the entire exception if the approval authority gives the broader discretion?
Yes, you're right. Yes, I think we delete the entire exception. I'm sorry.
And so we'll need a proposal to do that, and that can come at a little bit later time. But so this will be a line, yes, we need an amendment to strike the exception with the amendment. And then we'd be happy with 104.2.3. Let me just scroll down. In 104.2.2 natural disasters. All the rest of these, I have no cost impact, no amendment needed until 104.2.4.2 or 104.2.4.2 and so this is one that Ken outlined as potentially needing some looking at. It's a new section allows the fire code official to make some emergency provisions into the fire code as they kind of see fit. So do we want to look at the natural disaster section further as part of our review process? Or do we like this section as drafted here by the ICC? I guess is my question for you guys.
It's pretty much discretionary for the HJ. So to me, I think we may want to take a look at it, but I don't see any obvious red flags on it.
So are you creating a process that did not exist in Washington State by saying this now?
We're providing a
is-
clearer path for that
Okay.
to occur.
Yeah, this is model language change.
Yes.
So this is ICC, and yeah, I'm sure it was prompted by COVID, but I don't see any direct concern. I mean, it makes sense that extenuating circumstances, something defined as a disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's see, the next one I have in here, lithium batteries 105.5.29 is the next significant change, but that's included in our existing amendment report. 105.
Hey, just to jump back real quick on that natural disaster, isn't there, or at least I would assume there's already state laws that reflect this, especially with all like the governor proclamation and all that. I would just be curious if we could actually just import any Washington pre-existing laws so that we're not contradicting ourselves.
So if we were making a proposal to change this, we can see if there's any Washington laws to reference when making a change to that section.
Correct.
Maybe that should be part of our recommendation too, is that it be reviewed against state laws.
That's what I have going in here. So for the section,
Okay.
we have amendment needed, additional review for potential proposals, and then are there existing Washington laws to reference?
Thank you.
This is what I have in there for the tag comments and recommendation. All right. Lithium batteries was located here in the 2021 codes. As it was picked up by model code language, this section moved around to 105.5.29 right in here. And the amendment needed would be to repeal this amendment. And so I'm going to skip back to our existing amendment review page on this one with the recommendation to repeal the amendment for this section because the model code language is verbatim to the Washington amendment. Then moving on to mobile food. Go ahead.
I'd be curious, sorry to interrupt. So that lithium, and I don't know if this already exists in the body of the code. So like vehicles on display that are of, lithium batteries, is that considered display or not storage or?
So I guess I'm not quite following the question. You're asking if there's a section in here that covers display versus storage?
Yeah, so, inadvertently, providing operational permits for vehicles that could be on just display pending sale, or even at your Home Depot, lithium batteries, pending sale.
I don't know. I what did review in chapter 320. There's a big section in there that covers a lot of this, but there's an exception. I can't remember the exact section, but there's an exception for vehicles that are on display. I'd have to go in there and find it as part of our chapter 3 review. I think it's covered, but we're talking about requiring a permit for them outright. So would you suggest that we make an amendment to this operational permit section and have an exception to it, or
Yeah, I would think so, because we do the same with, other hazardous material and products pending sale and use. And I think we might want to consider the same with the lithium batteries.
okay.
If it doesn't already exist somewhere else in the body of the code.
Okay. Okay. Six. Okay. And for mobile food preparation vehicles, I just opted to keep the same amendment with updated numbering with the new model code sections. And we're back to some significant changes. We're at 105.5.55. Nothing here. 105.5.56. Considering and so I labeled this one to consider an amendment because of the recent emergency rule we had to do for barbecues on balconies, and I was wondering how the tag would feel about temporary heating or cooking in wildfire risk areas, since our wildfire maps aren't super available right now, and cooking and heating in these areas might be more barbecue police type stuff. So I just wanted to earmark it for consideration by the tag. I prefer not to make an amendment to this section personally.
And it does say we're required by local regulations, so we're leaving it to the locals.
Okay, then I'm going to remove the consider the amendment portion of that.
Should that language be changed to where it's local regulations more consistent with code official, or just don't recall reading local regulations in other body of the code.
So you're saying, should it say fire official, for example, right?
Yeah, because that's defined in the fire code, what that means.
I'd be happy to add that in there. So we're required by the fire code official.
Where the authority having jurisdiction, but I think historically it's been fire code official.
It would just end up being in a future amendment though, wouldn't it, Dustin?
Yes, I'm not gonna actually leave. I need to put it into the report, not into the body of the code text.
Yep.
Okay. And then for the rest of the new sections in here, I don't have any earmarks for consideration of local or not local of state amendments. And the last one to get to is underground supply piping in 105.6.26. And we just need to update the numbering on this one and maintain the amendment as my suggestion. Does anybody have a section they'd like to go back and look at, or I guess it would be time to entertain a motion to add chapter 00, or not chapter 00, but the preface and chapter 1 to our master document.
So moved.
Second.
Dave, you're the alternate again, aren't you?
God, I gotta remember not to vote.
I will second.
Yeah, this is Quinn, so I'll make the motion then.
Okay. Do
I'll
I have?
second.
That was Walker that made, I think.
Correct, yes.
All right, is there any more discussion? Anybody would like to look through any other sections?
Yeah, this Hugo. One thing that we're doing locally in Renton is the HMUs. I was trying to find the body of the code that we were introducing to amend amend the current code about cooking HMUs, underground kind of fire pits. We're incorporate that in our city. It's something we can definitely explore in the next code cycle, since I don't have the language with me right now.
But you can always do an amendment after this,
Yeah,
or, yeah, you can put it in chapter 3 or whatever this applies. Or 5.
And I can send that to you, Dustin.
Okay, that'd be good.
Thank you.
any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, let's move on to chapter 2.
All right. Hopefully these things save quick. I'll shut them down.
This is Bill. I had to step out for a minute, take a call. I'm back.
And for the record, I didn't vote on the last vote.
There it goes. All right, sorry about that delay. It'll take a second for these other ones to download now. All right, so for chapter 2, we have a bunch of definitions in here, some new ones, some old ones, and we'll get right to it. All right, so coming down the list for adult family home, this is a Washington amendment. Just needs to be inserted into the 2024 code. Recommend keep that amendment. Moving to our next one, we have alert signal. Also an existing Washington amendment. Recommend maintaining that one. Same for alert system. Next, we get to assisted. Well, we have approved agency. This is a new definition. Not recommending any amendment to this one. And let me just take a quick look at the so as far as significant changes, it's all going to be the reorganization of the occupancy classification definition. And I'll get to that one after that. But for significant changes, I don't have anything that needs amendment other than Washington State definitions being picked up in here by model code language. And so I'll hang out here on this page while we review this. So assisted living facility, recommend maintaining that one. Childcare, we have an update. Hugo?
Yeah, in my review, I made a comment about defining temporary. I don't know if it should be done in the body of the chapter and here in definitions, but.
So just the term temporary, what are you proposing the definition be?
I'm trying to recall what I wrote, but there is other sections within this code, temporary defined as certain calendar days. I don't recall, you have to pull it up.
Yeah, there is 180 days for permit and things like that. There is 30 days for some other sections. I don't know which one you're referring to, but there are a number of days, yes.
Yeah, and I know even temporary exists in 90 days.
Right.
But yeah, because the new section regarding indoor heating and cooking and about there was some language about temporary. So one of my recommendations was defining temporary. But maybe it's better suited in that body of that code somewhere.
But
Gotcha.
that's a new definition that's not in the model code or in our amendments.
Not that I found.
So then we'd be looking at an amendment for that.
Yes, so once this report, we wouldn't include something like that in this report. As we get to the proposal portion of our code adoption cycle, anybody can make a proposal to make an amendment. And so at that point, we would propose the definition of temporary within the definition section here, or if there's another spot that it might better be placed, it can be placed there.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
On the same note, then we can look at display as a definition or is part of the lithium ion specific.
Yes.
I didn't hear what Samir said for sure, but I would just want to make sure that type of a definition might be something we would want to think about in all the codes. I mean, is the IBC have a definition of temporary, and if you add it in the IFC, it could get complicated. So, but let's deal with it as a proposed change afterwards.
So Roger, I'm new to this process in Washington. So how do you cross coordinate across tags?
Not as well as we could or should maybe, but I think that a little bit of that is meant to be just the fact that there are people from multiple influences on all of the tags. So when as you're going through this process on the IFC, I try to think about how that could impact the IBC.
Okay.
So
Dave?
Yeah, just one of the things that the fire service did and purposely was Lance Stahl, who's our fire chief on this tag, is also the alternate for the fire service on the building tag. So it allows us to have cross pollination between the tags of understanding one tag to the other versus having a separate representative for each one. So I think that's something that we'll be able to do as well. I know that in the past, staff has had to do the coordination and correlation of the different code changes, because obviously we're going to be talking about chapter 10 and building code is going to talk about chapter 10 and chapter 9, vice versa. So those have to cross pollinate between the two tags to be able to make sure we all come up with something that works well. So I think the new process that we're doing will actually make that better than we have done in the past.
And we have shared chapter 10 chapter 9 from this group with the IBC. And did we send out chapter 10 for you guys to review within this group? I want to say we did, but I'm not 100%.
I don't think I had seen it, but Andy Lianto is in the fire protection engineer spot for the building code, and I work with Andy quite a bit. So he did let me know that was probably going to be coming over to us, but I don't think I've seen it yet.
I think we just finished that at the last meeting, and that's my bad on not getting that out on this one. So let me just get another note on that one. Okay. All right, with the assisted living facility, no change. Automatic flush bolt, new definition. Didn't see a reason to make an amendment to it. Anything where they have small changes in here, I've just said they're editorial and no new definition, nothing crazy. We're getting to childcare next. Carbon monoxide source. I think it just clarifies some stuff. Childcare and childcare family home are existing amendments. One thing that needs to change in the publication, not necessarily the WAC, is the number of children allowed in the family home childcare. It went up from 12 to 16 by an off-cycle rule earlier this year. Cluster, no need to make any changes to that one. Maintain the amendment.
One thing with childcare, I'm trying to recall because the licensure requirements for through the state DOH, they go by the life safety code. So I just want to make sure there's no conflict in that definition.
So the Department of Children, Youth and Family were the proponents of the change within the building code. And so we work closely with them to make sure that their requirements weren't clashing with our requirements.
Okay.
And as far as what we got going on within the fire code and the building code, there's still some rulemaking that needs to happen to bring those changes all the way forward into the 2021 code. So the main changes were made in the residential code, and there's some expedited rulemaking wrapping up on the fire code and the building code to correlate that change. With cluster, keeping it the same. Computer room and constant latching bolt, no amendment needed. Covered boat moorage, keep it the same. with the custodial care. This one, we have it in here. I believe in Ken's report, it said to delete the amendment because the language is picked up, but there is some changes in the language in our amendment as compared to what's in the model code here today. And so I just have in here, keep the existing amendment unless we as a tag decide that the changes are non-substantive, and we could go with the model code language on this one. Any thoughts on that?
Can you make it a little bit bigger? It's hard to read.
Yes, I can do that.
I think, Dustin, we should look carefully at that because I actually, I was just looking at some of my IBC work and the importance factors for when you get into building occupancy type. And I'm thinking it's occupancy type I, but
Yes.
That language is in, we should look carefully at that, I think. Because that is a big change on the IBC is most of the I occupancies are gonna have to be category 4 occupancies. What's that? I'm not getting my terminology right. But
Yeah, I2, I4 occupancies, and even our occupancies has custodial care. It's a healthcare related stuff, and daycare and childcare, adult
so
care. Yeah.
I can try to pull that up, but we need to be careful because that language is very involved in that change of the occupancies on the IBC.
I agree with Roger. And one of the things about making changes in the definitions versus the specific code chapters, there might be a way to do a caveat unless specific sections have more restrictive requirements or something like that would be other way to do it. But I think we should just look at it and not just make changes like that.
Okay. So are we looking at to maintain and correlate that this amendment is the same in the IBC?
No,
And-
it's not. I'm sorry, I got my hand raised. It's not. We need to, and I was wrong. We need to keep in the limited verbal or physical assistance because we have a definition for that.
Okay.
We have a state definition for limited verbal or physical assistance. So we need to keep that part of that amendment in. So I was wrong when I first reviewed it.
Okay. So keep the existing amendment, review IBC language for correlation. Does it sound like a good recommendation for this section?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ken, did you have anything else? Oh, never mind, your hand's back down, sorry. All right, I'm gonna go back to the side-by-side view and zoom it back out a little bit. And if you ever want me to zoom it in, just speak out and I'll go ahead and do that. For data center, no amendment needed, new definition, same for deadbolt. Same for downlink. With the electrical code, recommending maintain the existing amendment. This next one here is the first one. This language is representative of the Washington State Amendment. So the recommendation is to repeal the amendment and that the model code language is identical. All right, next one is frequency as far as existing amendments. I didn't consider this one as a significant change. It seems that it just gives some more clarity in the flammable gas definition. All right, frequency in Washington. This one is verbatim for the model code now. So the recommendation is to repeal the amendment. For frequency license holders, there's a small change. This is or are is the difference in our Washington amendment here. But my suggestion here is to repeal the amendment and that the model code language is almost the same on this one. And I would say that it is editorial and doesn't change the effect of this definition. Then moving on to frequency licensing authority. This one is picked up by model code language, and the recommendation is to repeal the amendment, and the model code language is identical. Next, for gravity operated dropout vents, no change needed in this amendment. Same for gypsum wallboard and gypsum board. Looks like they just broke out gypsum wallboard from gypsum board. Hospice care center, looking to maintain that existing definition. With hybrid fire extinguishing systems, just a new definition, no amendment needed. Same for the inflatable amusement device, information technology equipment and information technology equipment facilities. No amendments needed. For a landscaped roof, no amendment needed. Here's that definition for limited verbal or physical assistance. Suggestion to maintain that amendment. Quinn?
Yeah, so going back to landscape roof, I was talking to my committee this morning, and the only time that it's referenced, it's only referencing chapter 15 of the IBC. There's nowhere else in the IFC that it's really pertinent to. So the question is, I guess, now because of that new definition, this is a new definition. So now if you have a planter on a roof deck, you're now required to, do Class C or whatever, or Class B roofing. Is that something that we would care about? So I don't know if this is a question that I should ask now, or because we're debating on whether or not to do a code proposal to either eliminate it or modify it somehow. But I just want to get your guys' thoughts on it, because if you look at 150510 of the IBC, it's not a change in terms of the requirements. I'm not familiar with ANSI/SPRI VF-1, but now because of that definition, it opens the door to almost any roof would require compliance with ANSI/SPRI VF-1, whereas before it was kind of up in the air. So it almost slams the door and requires almost everything at this point.
So Quinn, we have section 317 in the fire code for landscape roofs. So we have a whole section of the fire code, 317.
But if you look at 317 though, it just basically punts you to 1505. So that's
not necessarily. I mean,
yeah, I'm looking at 317. It's a maintenance plan, but that's about it. And then the rest is just punting to 1505. So 317.
So are what you're saying is in the 24 building code, is it not defined there?
It's defined there as well. It's added to both.
So what did the group this morning, I mean, what did the building people want to do with that definition?
Some of us felt like it kind of made it more restrictive because now you're requiring almost everything with a roof deck to be, in compliance with ANSI SPRI, whereas before we weren't requiring it. So you're increasing the cost at this point for a lot of construction. So I wanted to bring that up and see what your guys' thoughts were on it. We don't need to make a decision right now. It was just more of a, I wanted to get your thought process on it.
Would not the way I'm reading it is not necessarily if you set a planter on a roof that kicks you in there, but if that planter or vegetation or anything is incorporated into a roof assembly, is where I would
Yep.
kind
So
of, is that kind of the
as
same
soon
view
as you
guys are
have
taking?
one, yeah, as soon as you have one planter, just one, you now have to comply.
Okay.
And this opens the door for like dog runs up on the roof. It basically, the court of appurtenance. Now you have you're opening the door for basically every rooftop assembly that has, occupancy would require.
So Quinn, you're saying the intent of this section was for green roofs and not just roof with planters. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in the past we've always looked at it for green roofs only, but now, because I think one of the big issue in the past was rooftop decks assemblies, right? Rooftop occupancy, and so I think they're trying to address that, but I think they're opening the door. It's like a can of worms is how we feel. So I don't know. I just want to bring that up. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. This might be a co-proposal that comes in.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is I think I'd like to see a code proposal.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
do we
thanks.
think an amendment's needed for this one, and we can potentially put one together as a tag when the time is appropriate?
I think let's let the industry do it. Let's say,
Okay.
and maybe anticipate an amendment coming.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring it, get your guys' thoughts on it, mainly, so I could bring it back to my group.
Gotcha. All right. Limited verbal or physical assistance. I'm not proposing any changes to that Washington definition. Manual bolt, new definition, not proposing any amendments for that one. Mobile food preparation vehicle, recommending keeping the state amendment for this section. Mobile fueling or hydrogen mobile fueling, new definition, not proposing any amendments to that one. For motor vehicle, maintain the Washington State Amendment. For nightclub, maintain that amendment. And then within this section here, this is just the old stuff from the 2021 code where we have our changes. All of this is moved to a new section. We're in section 202 at the moment, and there's a new section in the 2024 code for section 203 for occupancy classification. And I will cover occupancy classification when we get down to section 203 in this document. But for the moment, it's moved out of this section, and the review for this one is included in the significant changes section. All right, we're back to occupiable roof, which is a new definition. I didn't put a recommendation in here because I missed it, but that one is Hugo.
To that point where you're saying that there was a change, and I think most of us are used to going to that section for the occupancy classification. See, for example, where it says open mall building, see covered mall building, or like where it directs you somewhere else. Could I propose that we consider if there's, I don't know what you were saying. I think you were saying it's in a different section within
It
chapter.
is. Let me show you the top here. This is a new section in the About This chapter. General definitions are located in section 202, and occupancy classification definitions are located in section 203. Are you saying it would be just because of the change in this cycle, keep occupancy classifications in there and maybe point them to section 203?
I mean, possibly. I mean, I know I use that section of the code when I have to define occupancies, but if it's in chapter chapter 2, I think it's fair, it's fine.
Okay.
I think that's a good example though, Hugo. I mean, the challenge is what is an occupancy classification definition and what's not in open mall, covered mall. That's a good example of the gray area between what should be in 202, what should be in 203 with this model change.
Yeah, I do a lot of
Separate
plan,
topic.
plan review, and so when they give me certain parameters of the type of use, I have to define, that occupancy or even adjoining occupancy. So going back to that chapter, even though I've seen it a bunch of times, I know where it's at.
But the occupiable roof got blurred a lot. Before it was like either it's a roof or it's an enclosed occupancy, and then we started adding occupiable roof with type of occupancy could be located on that floor, things like that. So it is different than mall, which is a special use, chapter 4. But the description is in chapter 5, not in chapter 3. So it's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, and it is a use concept, but
yeah.
And just so you guys know, I didn't include occupiable roof in this in these lines, so I just have it marked to include in here, and it'll be a new definition with no cost and no amendments needed for that. And I'll add it after the fact on this one. All right. Yeah, peer review. There might be a couple I need to add in here if they don't have comments. Let me just check. Yes, I'll need to add peer review in here as well.
Does the fire code require peer review? This is a new one for me. I thought structural had it, but not necessarily in fire code.
it references the possibility in some spots. I'm not certain, but I think it at least references the potential for peer review.
Okay.
Portable school classroom. Existing Washington Amendment definition, maintain it. For powered micro mobility devices. This one, I recommend repealing the amendment. The model code language includes a new definition that is worded slightly different than our Washington Amendment. So you see here with the red, that's what the changes that are included in our Washington Amendment right now. And I would have the opinion that having lithium ion or lithium metal battery instead of rechargeable battery would be more appropriate according to the rest of this code in this new sections. Does the tag agree on that, or need a little bit more time to consider?
You're proposing instead of calling out lithium ion or lithium metal, just to make it the generic rechargeable reference?
Well, no, that's what our
reverse.
state amendment is right now. I'm proposing that we do away with an amendment to this definition and use the new model code language, which is lithium ion or lithium metal in place of rechargeable.
We need time to look at it because it depends on what the requirements for this unit are. If it's a fire hazard, then yes, lithium ion is probably the appropriate one. If it's some other concern, then rechargeable battery might be more appropriate as it's more generic.
In the section, there's a new section in chapter 3 for powered micromobility devices. They use the terminology lithium ion and lithium metal across that section instead of rechargeable.
Okay, then probably makes sense to be consistent. I agree.
Okay, and I will leave that one as is. Puzzle room looks to be another one that I didn't include. Oh, I do have it. So no amendment required for that one. Recall signal, existing Washington definition, proposing to maintain that definition. With refrigerant and refrigeration system, it looks like they broke these into 2 separate definitions, and it comes from the mechanical code. Shelter in place is an existing Washington definition, looking to maintain that. Special amusement area, new definition, not proposing any amendments. Special hazard suppression systems would be the end of our existing amendments and definitions, and not looking to make a change to that. Sprinkler riser, new definition, no amendment. Townhouse unit seems to be broken out from townhouse in the 2021 verbiage. Uplink, valet trash collection, vegetative roof, and vertical water supply zone, all not needing any amendments. And that gets us through the basic definitions.
Justin,
yes, sir.
the vegetative roof, is that tied to the conversation we had about planters on the roof?
Yes. Say that it's related for sure.
That we were going to study, right?
Well, I think that this is just a little bit, I don't know if it, I don't know, Quinn, do you have an opinion on that one as far as wrapping this definition into the study for landscape roof?
No, we weren't really concerned with the vegetative roof because that was really the intent we thought, because this is the green roof that we're thinking of. It was the landscape roof that was more of a concern, because of that they're really specific on the definition, what constitutes landscaping. But vegetative roof has always been something that we've always, at least on the building official side of things, have addressed it as vegetative/green roof.
Okay.
So we're not as concerned with this one.
Okay.
So, getting into occupancy classification. So for this whole section, because it's moved and has some different parts in it now, I would say that a proposal is needed for this entire section to incorporate the Washington amendments. So in the definition sections, there's no numbering next to these subsections, and we have new numbering here. And then as far as the definition for occupancy classification, they've expounded quite a bit on what would be in the 2021 code. Let me just pull that up and show you guys. All right, here we go. So for occupancy classification in the 2021 code, sorry, when I had it all queued up, and then when I brought it over here, it moved my stuff around. Here it is. It just says, for the purposes of this code, certain occupancies are defined as follows, and that's the end of the definition. And then you have all the sub definitions in here. In the 2024 code, occupancy classification has a lot more verbiage in here. And I would move that I don't think that there's any real amendment needed to this particular section. The sections that follow, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I didn't include in this report because it's a large section, but I skipped it to go to the places where we had modifications to that definition in section 202 for the 2021 code. So for occupancy classification, I'm not proposing we change this at all. For section 203.7.1 is where we get into I1 occupancies. And most of this looks the same as the 2021 definition, just with numbering in front of the definition sections. So in 203.7.1, this is the Washington State Amendment for the definition of institutional group I1. We changed some sections here in the specific definition, and then the different types of examples. We have the inclusion of our licensed under 388-78A WAC. Just to clarify for the users here. So my recommendation for 203.7.1 is to incorporate the Washington existing amendment into the reorganized section as we have depicted here. If we were looking at Ken's document that he sent out to everybody, this section just said we need to do an evaluation on this section to incorporate the existing amendments into it. And so I believe that I've kind of done that one here. Next section that has a Washington amendment would be the institutional group I2. We just take out and put this occupancy here, and we add hospice care centers. No recommendation to add anything or modify the definition for this section, just to incorporate it into the new section 203. Same for the 5 or fewer persons, just to incorporate the definite or the changes from Washington's amendment into this new section as shown. And then we get to the stuff that wasn't included in the definition section. These are strictly Washington amendments that are additive. So family home child care, incorporate into an appropriate place following the 5 or fewer persons, and make no changes. Same with the adult care facility. Same with the child care facility. And the next one we get to is the residential group R in here. So we have a large section struck out from this section, and we just say this group shall include. And then we have R1 with some changes. So pretty much for all of these definitions, I'm not recommending any modifications to the Washington amendment. We are just looking to incorporate the amendments into the relocated sections in here. So we got R1, we have R2, we have R3. Then we have the adult family homes and childcare. And then we have foster family care homes. And then we continue to have the remainder of the section that looks almost identical to the occupancy classification definition from 2021. It's just pulled out and it's in its own section 203. And some of these indents changes is because the page breaks were not the same. And so I'm not fighting with the word or with the document formatting. And so that's all not intended to be a sub list or anything like that. All right, so that's the end of section 203 on that one. Does anybody have any questions or want to go back and look at anything in particular? Ken?
So I know this has always been troublesome with the correlation with our building code and our WACs. And I think Samir brought up the whole correlation bit. This is something that needs to be correlated because our definitions have never matched when it comes to occupancy classification. There's always been stuff that's been tweaked a little bit. Can you scroll back up to the R, the beginning of the R's? So when you, I mean, an example is the residential group R1. You would think that that would match what's in our building code, but of course we don't have the, you know, things struck out. It's just worded differently. So I'm just wondering, I mean, because I'm looking at the Washington State Building Code, and maybe I'm wrong if ICC didn't include all of our amendments, and I don't know if that's something that didn't get cleaned up, but I'm looking at an example of residential group R2, boarding houses, non-transient, where we add more than 16 occupants in the fire code, but it's not shown in the 310.3 in the Washington State Building Code on ICC's website. So I don't know if it's in the WAC married up or not, and those two need to be married up if we're doing occupancy classifications. And I really think that there needs to be some consistency here, and if it means getting somebody that looked at chapter 2 on the building tag and chapter 2 on the fire tag to get together, we really need to do that.
Yeah, and I think that
Or
that's
we're just going to continue down the same path that we have.
I think that's a really good idea, and what I would suggest is we just, in the report, we say that an amendment is needed, and it should be in concert with somebody or representatives from the IBC tag. I mean, I think that if we flag for the SBC, for the council itself and the standing committee that this needs to happen, that's our recommendation, that there is going to be an amendment, and we're going to go through and make sure that these definitions map.
So does it make sense to actually schedule a meeting for the building code and fire code together with a specific agenda? So it happens rather than saying somebody do it?
Yes, I think that it does, Samir, and I think, again, our task between now and the June, whatever, 23rd meeting or whatever that upcoming SBCC meeting is to get this report done.
Okay.
So we can move forward. I think our report should say there is an amendment that is needed, and that amendment should be, I'm not sure the exact wording, but should be in concert with the IBC. And I think Dustin and I will also flag on the IBC tag meeting, which is, there's one tomorrow. I'm not sure when we're going through the definitions part of the IBC, but we'll flag it there too. And I think that's one of the ongoing things that we need to do, is schedule a meeting to just go through the definitions.
And I would think that there is mechanical code coordination also needed, especially in the hazmat materials. There's a lot of hazardous materials, mechanical code requirements that probably needs to be coordinated. So maybe one joint meeting with the IBC and IFC tags, and one joint meeting with the IBC, IFC. No, just the IFC and IMC tag.
That's fine, although is the mechanical code in group 2, I think, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure if how active they are, but I think that we could get, the mechanical tag is installed. So that could be their first order of business, is let's just sit down and study those definitions and try to get it coordinated. I think that effort would be a really big step forward to improve all of the codes. So.
And we could embark on that after we finalize these reports. If we identify the places that we see discrepancy across the codes, and we can get those sections kind of aligned in the reports, then as we go through the proposal period, we can have some special meetings amongst the tags and combine them to talk about these sections amongst our multiple tags, and get proposals ready to submit to make those correlating changes. All right, so that's all I have on chapter 2. Anything else we would like to cover on this one before entertaining a motion to move it to the master document?
Can you just humor me? What did we decide to do with the powered micromobility devices? Were we including the words lithium or not?
Well, as far as that one goes, I don't know if we made a decision to include it or not include it.
I think you did. I think we concluded to keep it as lithium ion and not make the changes, because you pointed out that there was a section that listed lithium ion consistently is what you did. And we can revisit that, but that's where we ended.
No, that's what I thought too. I just want to make sure, because that section does specifically say lithium ion now. So we want the model code language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Can I get a motion to move chapter 2 along to the next step into the master document?
This is Ken. I'll do it for Dave since Dave likes to do it all the time. So
Okay.
move forward
We
chapter
can book in
2
and I'll
with
second.
Kevin, I'll second.
with I
All
always
right.
want to caveat that we we will put our note in there about coordination with the other tags. Thank you.
Are you sure you want to be associated with the Dave this much, Ken? You might be right.
Hey, he's the one that put me in this position. So yes, I am affiliated with him for life.
So Ken made a motion, and I believe Kevin Marr was the first one I identified as making a second. So
You have like 9 o'clock.
oh, Bill was having another conversation. Okay, any other comments on chapter 2? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, great. Chapter 3, I think. Is that next?
Yes, chapter 3 is next. And try to let this thing breathe a little bit while it does its saving and opening and downloading. Okay. All right, so for chapter 3, starting out at 301.2, we have I have a note on here that 320 was additive manufacturing in the 2021 code, and with the addition of chapter 320, which is lithium batteries, we no longer have the additive manufacturing listed in the permit section here. And so I just have a note to ask if we would like to include chapter 19 or 319, sorry, to this section here to maintain additive manufacturing in here. If not, my recommendation is to adopt model code language and repeal the existing state amendment.
Okay, so a permit is required if you have industrial additive manufacturing. Is that correct still in chapter 1? That's what I just want to verify. Because it's referenced in 319.3.1 permits required for industrial additive manufacturing in 105.5. So I think that we should put in the 319 here. I think this was just an editorial miss by ICC when they renumbered.
That's kind of what I was thinking on it. But if they missed it, we'll put it in.
Well, yeah, some of us are I'm not correlation committee for ICC, so maybe we can see where they're at with it. It might just get fixed on the next printing, and for all we know, it's already in a errata that's been published, and none of us have looked at it yet.
Right. So. That's the orange. Okay, moving to definitions. So our amendment is to have mobile food preparation vehicles in here. So mobile food preparation vehicles was relocated to chapter 4106. And the new model code language adds valet trash collection. I don't see an amendment needed to this one, and this is the same recommendation included in Ken's report that he provided to us so graciously. Any need to maintain mobile food preparation vehicles in here? It is still defined, but I don't see why we need it in here.
No, it just needs to be listed in the chapter 41 when
Yeah,
we get there.
I agree.
All right. Moving down, so combustible waste material, valet trash.
So can we discuss the valet trash?
Yes.
Since I'm dealing with them right now, a company that provides it. This was a nice addition, but it doesn't necessarily help because every jurisdiction has to come up with their role and rules and limitations established by the jurisdiction. So I just kind of would like to know if anybody's even looked at the appendix section that deals with this.
I have not.
That would, okay.
What is valet trash? Can you explain that, Ken?
There's a definition. It's it's basically a service that is provided that somebody it can be a residential or business type occupancy would leave containers outside their door where somebody would come through at a designated period of time and pick them up and dispose of them in the appropriate container. So it's kind of a convenience that I would just put my trash and recycles in these provided containers outside my apartment door. Somebody would just come by, take them and dispose of them properly for me, so I don't have to do it. That's basically what it is. The problem with
sorry,
go ahead.
Ken. I was going to say,
Well,
I believe the intent was that this is an accessibility was why it was brought up.
Yeah, it just the problem is that it says valet trash collection shall be permitted. One, there's not a permit for it, and then only where approved. Approved means by the fire code official. So it basically prohibits it unless the fire code official approves it. And then it states the owner, and the owner would be the business or property owner, and valet trash collection service provider has to comply with the rules and limitations established by the jurisdiction. Well, the jurisdiction is Washington State right now in this discussion, and we have none. So the only guidance that we would have at the moment that's printed would be the appendix section. I think it's O.
That is correct, Ken. And it seems pretty thin on criteria.
That's correct. It's appendix O.
So essentially, Ken, what I understand you're saying is if valet trash is provided, we want it to be approved by the fire code official and comply with appendix O.
I mean, that's going to possibly be a code change proposal, but I just don't know if the tags, I know we have to specifically adopt appendixes in the state, so that's the only guideline we have, and it's only for R2 occupancies, which is fine. We can do that, but I just wonder if anybody else has looked at this section and even had to deal with it. I know I'm dealing with it in Seattle a lot, so I'm just trying to see if the state would like to, this tag would like to take on the challenge of looking at Appendix O or not. Or do you just want to wait for a code change proposal to come in that says the state should adopt Appendix O?
I'm going to go on a limb on this, but outside Seattle, I don't think very many buildings would be doing this, right? Or are you thinking that
No,
this will
it's
expand?
just today.
Yeah.
Just today we got something came from the fire chief's office that actually came from a company that said that the building owner wants the fire official to approve it before they sign the contract with the company to provide this service. So, and this happens on a regular basis. It's an amenity that apartment complexes are requiring their tenants to do to sign up for these services to take care of the rubbish in their facility. So it is happening, but there's no guidance to the fire code official. I know what I'm going to do in Seattle, but I just want to know what the state of Washington would like to do
With multiple
for
hands up,
rules.
so you've got people's attention now, okay?
Yeah.
So Quinn, it looks like your hand was up first.
Yeah, so this came up a couple times in Tacoma, and this is more of an alternate means and method. Again, this is going back to accessibility, where the apartment complex couldn't provide accessible trash because of, like steep slope or something. So this was an alternate means. We've allowed it for valet trash, but again, it's only where approved by the building official. I mean, it's more of a building code issue than it is a fire code issue. I understand that under the section is combustible waste material. So this is where the correlation between the building code and the fire code official needs to factor in. But yeah, we've allowed it, but only as an alternate.
Dave?
Yeah, just a clarification for those who aren't aware of this, Seattle has its own code. They don't have to follow the state code. So that's why I think Ken is saying, what's the state going to do? Because it's anything outside of Seattle, because they have their own code. And I have seen this in suburb areas, other smaller jurisdictions around Seattle. My daughter had lived over there and they had valet trash and all the apartment complex she was in. I'm not aware if we actually have very much of this in Spokane.
I haven't been asked or seen any yet.
Hugo?
I would recommend removing that first sentence and then keeping the last part. I mean, I don't know if we want to by jurisdiction or there's a better language for that, but that would be my recommendation. This is something that I deal with constantly, and I don't think we're in a position to provide prior approval for trash services throughout R2s.
So I think this is a good option. We're saying we anticipate seeing a proposed amendment.
So we would like to let the industry drive this one and not suggest an amendment.
I would prefer that. That's just my own opinion.
So for process-wise, how does that work when you say the industry will propose? Who is the industry? Is there somebody representing the industry here, or how does that work?
It could be anybody in the state.
Within the state.
So that's the
Yeah,
next
once
step.
public
Is we,
proposals are open.
yeah, the next step is we open up the code to anybody to provide proposals and including members of the tag, if they want to separately from this, so we can make a proposal for this. So just flagging it as anticipating an amendment helps remind us that this is something we need to take a look at. We don't necessarily have to do the amendment today, but we could do something in a later discussion.
Thanks.
And Samir, I will also, just talking about our schedule, the push here is to get this report done and approved by the council at the June meeting. And then that opens up the 60-day period for amendments from anybody. So that's why we're pushing hard to get this report done. That's step number one. And then we open everything up to amendments.
Thanks.
And I will reach out to the biggest stakeholder for this, the company. Actually, I have an email I'm just looking at from them right now and mention to them about this state process so they're aware of it.
Very good.
Low heat release materials. No amendments, no cost. Big section, waste and linen containers. I'm not flagging that one for any amendments. Same for capacity density. Same for recycling clean waste containers. And same for waste containers with a capacity of 20 gallons or more in Group R2 college and university dormitories. I believe that takes us to the end of blue text in that one. Yeah. Our next state amendment is going to be in section 307. Permit required and authorization. We say see also chapter 173.425 WAC, recommending to maintain that amendment. Recreational fires is the next one.
Dustin.
Yes, sir.
All of the other WACs is just listed WAC and then the number.
This is what was in the in our WAC referencing this WAC. I'd be happy to flip that around if you like, though.
I'm just editorial. I'm used to seeing all the WACs that listed that way.
Okay. Go ahead and do that here as well. All right, for recreational fires. So we don't have the metric measurements in our state amendment. And my recommendation is to maintain the state amendment while including the metric measurements in there as well.
Sounds good.
Okay. With religious ceremonies, we need to renumber it with some inclusion of some new sections in there. My proposal is to maintain the existing amendment. And we get to aisles and exits. We add an exception in there for candles and religious ceremonies. I'll recommend maintaining the existing amendment while renumbering it to align with the 2024 code sections. Same for the decorative open flame tables, just needs to be renumbered. Getting to vehicles in 314.4. So we have an existing amendment here where we take out liquid, we take the word fueled and we change gaseous to gas in this one, and boats is changed in here. My recommendation is to repeal the existing amendment. Aside from some small editorial differences, the model code language is the same as our state amendment. Hugo.
Sorry to back it up just a little bit about the candles and aisles. Should we reference as long as it meets the requirements of chapter 10?
So in here, would be a proposal change. Do you want to recommend that the tag recommends a change to this section?
Well, I'm just worried about the use of candles and where it says or in aisles or exits, but I don't want to limit the size capacity. and aisles and exits. So yeah, I would recommend some reference to maintaining the corridor width or exit width.
I think I kind of see that also again as a proposed change at this point.
So we let the industry propose this one.
Or PEG members after our report's done, yes.
Okay. And the concern is the aisle or exit width.
Yeah, correct. Just maintaining the required exit width or exit access.
Okay. So I'm in the report, I'm putting potential amendment needed to reference chapter 10 aisle exit width. Or aisle/exit width.
Just to play devil's advocate, Hugo. So in a religious ceremony, then if people just stand there without candles, they are blocking the exit width, there is nothing preventing them. So how does candle change that? Because this one is addressing candles, not the obstruction of exit.
Yeah, but the display and the location of candles down an aisle to, primarily to the exit is where you would find that. And my concern is a decreased exit width requirements, even from the aisles or the pews, and especially if they're lit candles.
I see. So you want it, if they're going to just stand there, you want a wider aisle or exit path. If they're walking through with a candle in their hand, then it's a different story, is what you're saying.
Yeah, correct. I'm looking at those ones that are self-standing and they kind of go down the aisle in a religious ceremony.
Okay.
All right, so on vehicles, most of the Washington State Amendment was picked up by additional code language here in the 2.1 through 2.4. And so we just have limited changes with the Washington State Amendment to this section. And I would recommend that we repeal it and just go with the model code language in this section. Is that agreeable to this body?
Yeah, I'm fine with it since I'm the one that put in that amendment, I think last year.
Yeah, agreed.
Dustin, I know that you may have purposely skipped over it, but my favorite topic is 308.1.4 existing state amendment. Were you going to show that in your report that it got relocated to chapter 41?
I must have missed that. 308.1.4.
Yeah, our open flame cooking devices, where we don't adopt. Yeah, so
I did not catch that one. Sorry.
okay, so it got relocated to chapter 41, but if you're looking at our existing amendments, we did not adopt that section, but we're going to have to look at not adopting it in the 4104.2. So I don't know if you need to somehow just insert that the 308.1.4 has been renumbered to 4104.2. And that we're going to 4104.2, yeah. And then that the proposal is that we don't adopt that. I think that makes sense.
I'm still getting calls about that.
Okay, so I will have to come back in here and put that section in but I'll flag it for inclusion there. All right. Let me see. Oh, the reason I missed it is because I'm working from the online WAC, and with the off-cycle rule, that language hasn't trickled back into this one. So good catch, Ken. Uh, 319 for mobile food preparation vehicles. This one has bopped out to 4106.1. So we should see significant changes in chapter 41 for this one. So the recommendation for this section would be to repeal the existing amendment and mark it as reserved. That is if we were doing everything in the WAC with the old way. The section's moved, and we need to create the amendment in chapter 41 and adopt additional model code language into existing amendment. The new language is shown in strikeout. So I did go into chapter 41 and pull out this section in here. And what you see is what we have as far as our state amendment, but I would propose that we adopt the model code language that's shown struck out in blue. Do we want to leave that one to a review for chapter 41?
I would like to, yeah, wait till we get to 41 and review the chapter, because I mean, it's all new. Just making sure there's.
Okay. So I'll just leave it flagged to see the significant changes for chapter 41. On the 321. I guess getting into significant changes here. Why don't I have this? Oh, here's why this one's out of order. In 2021 code, this was section 322. It's been moved into 2024 to 320.1. With section 320, it's all almost identical to the Washington State amendments. There are a couple changes that I've identified here. In section 320.2, the reference to 321.1 is a reference to the location in the 2021 model code. So I've updated it to be 320.1. Same for this one, 105.5.28 was a 2021 reference. I've updated it to be 105.5.29 to align with that chapter. Same thing with the fire safety plan. Instead of being section 404, it should be 403.10.6, which is in our state amendment. And in comparing the two, that's the correct reference for here. In the limited indoor storage in containers, our amendment strikes this all of in the last sentence here of the beginning sentence. And I think that could be added back in. Let's see, that's 324.1. And I have repeal that existing amendment. Model code language is the same. As far as these other ones we've already talked about, I just have the update the references here in green. For the technical opinion and report, our state amendment adds where required by the code official. in here. The model code language is all the same. It just doesn't have that first part of the sentence in there. And my recommendation is to adopt the model code language. 4.22, nothing in there. And all of these sections. So in the 2021 code, all of this was Washington State Amendment. And the recommendation on Ken's report was to adopt all of this without any state amendments. And these might just be some editorial changes we need to talk to ICC about in here. And I would recommend adopting model code language for the technical opinion and report. Do we want to talk about this section a little bit more, Ken, or anybody else?
I don't, because I know I'm going to be proposing changes again.
Okay. Then moving back up the line here to that is artificial combustible vegetation, section 321. Right here, we have in general, we're in the 321.1, just proposing to maintain the existing amendment, which adds an additional exception. Then I will skip past the lithium ion section. 22. Here we are, I think. So missing some letters there. Okay, for powered micromobility devices, Hugo, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Sorry, out of curiosity, that QR code, does that exist on the online version once it's adopted?
Which does what exist on the online version?
The QR code that's next to the.
Ooh, let's see.
I don't know if it takes you to misinformation, if it sends you to the general IFC versus the state.
So far, the QR codes, so I'm looking at the 2024 code online, and they don't have the QR codes included in the body of this text. And so prior to Stoyan's departure, I believe that he was wanting to remove all of the QR codes from our publications. And so I don't know if that's something that we want to entertain as a group here and potentially for all the codes. But your concern is that if we leave this here, it'll take you to the wrong section for our amendments and we wouldn't have anything. I talked about maybe creating our own QR codes for Washington amendments, but that's a significant task that was not identified as something that would be good for us to embark on this code cycle. Walker?
I really thought the QR codes were just a tool for our use in this doc. I did not think that ICC was going to be having QR codes embedded in the online or printed or PDF codes.
It'll be on the print versions for sure. I think it'll probably come out in the PDF versions. I don't know 100% on that one. But they'll be out there and they're, I guess, not intending to include them in the online version.
I agree. I see no reason to have them in the state codes.
Okay. Well, we can pop them out. Go ahead, Samir.
On section 322, since in the text of it, we're adding and powered industrial trucks, I would add that to the title as well, powered micromobility devices and powered industrial trucks, because that way it will get flagged in the table of contents too.
So for this section, that would be the only changes that our state amendments make to this section is the inclusion of powered industrial trucks. And in Ken's report, he had this listed as should we consider even including this in our state amendments and adoption of this section. So, Ken, do you have any more insight on the inclusion of powered industrial trucks in our model or in our state amendments?
No, I don't. This was just when I was trying to put in powered micromobility devices, it just the original code change proposal, yes, we put it in there. I'm just not too sure if we want to regulate industrial trucks in this section, because I don't think it meets the definition of, I have to double check powered micromobility devices, it meets that definition or not.
So if you're not adding powered industrial trucks to it, then leave it as is. But if you're going to add powered industrial trucks across the board, then the title should also include that, is my point.
So I guess we just need to know is powered industrial trucks someplace else in the 24 code that maybe I just didn't pick up? Did anybody take a look at that? Or industrial trucks anywhere?
It's in the definitions, but I have not come across it anywhere else except for the amendments to this section. So if it's in a different chapter, I don't know.
I haven't seen regulations. I know in the hazmat code, there's some industrial truck issue. I would have to go back and double check now that you asked Ken, but I've had to deal with it. I just don't remember where.
Okay, so powered industrial trucks is under section 309. So go back up to 309. So since we have the powered industrial trucks and equipment here, we probably should just remove it out of that section.
Makes sense.
Oops. Messing that up.
By the way, I'm impressed, Ken. You're a walking, talking Google, but in real life.
Yeah, well, it's kind of been my life for 30 years.
I've been working in courts a long time too, but I can't quote like you do. It's impressive.
But I can't remember what I had for dinner last night.
Okay. So for all of this section in power micromobility devices, any amendment that contains the power industrial trucks verbiage, I just have in the recommendation to repeal the amendment and that the powered industrial trucks are included in section 309. Any of these other sections, we're recommending to repeal the amendments to them because the model code language picks up the amendment language. Here we are. And that, gentlemen and ladies, brings us to the end of chapter 3. Is there any section we would like to go back and take a little bit more scrutiny at, or are we prepared to entertain a motion on this one?
So on behalf of Dave Cocott again, I propose.
And do we have a second?
Ricky Campbell will second.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this topic? Seeing no hands, hearing nothing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? All right. Cool. 4. All right, for chapter 4. Let's see. 401.2, we have an existing amendment, and my recommendation is to maintain this amendment. We insert the term fire code official and remove this code. Oops. In the definitions section 402.1, we add in several definitions that are Washington state specific. And as far as a recommendation, I'm not recommending any changes to this state amendment and to maintain it. Our next one is for assembly points. We amend this one to be assembly points and fire operations. And assembly points shall not be in areas likely to be utilized for fire service operations. Proposing to maintain this amendment. Group R2 occupancies 403.9.2. My recommendation is to remove the state amendment. The model language is identical to our section here. And it's just highlighted to bring it up for visual purposes. Next one for group. Yes.
Dustin, I'm sorry. That was 40392, right?
Yes, sir.
And then 40392, you said to remove existing amendment. But I said to keep existing amendment because we need to reference to 403.9.2.4, which is a state amendment. So our state amendment for 403.9.2 is the very last section when it says through, it should be 403.9.2.4. I don't know if you follow what I'm saying there. So
I think I got that.
Yeah, so 403.9.2, the very last number in that should be a 4 because
that's my oversight. I was reading through it and missed that one little change. Okay. Thank you for catching that, Ken. 2 and okay, that should look better now. And then moving on to Group R2 assisted living and residential care facilities. Recommendation is to maintain the existing amendment for this section.
I have a question about clarifying.
Mhm.
Did we say licensed by the state of Washington? What department of the state of Washington? I mean, and maybe that's a silly point, I'm not sure.
I don't think it's silly, but I don't think that in any of the other spaces that they talk about the specific department, but they will say licensed with the WAC that covers that licensing.
Well, it's not worth a big change, but I just am curious. Just a question.
Okay. So on this one, I have the state amendment listed below the model code language and some changes that are in the model code as well, or not in the model code. Just try to show our changes to the existing language from 2021, what our state amendment is, and that there's additional language in this section. So for this section, my recommendation is to repeal the existing state amendment. The model code language expands and clarifies the Washington Amendment language here. And so all the
Maybe-
go ahead.
Maybe fairly minor, but the existing state amendment. Oh no, I guess the new ICC language notes evacuation plan. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Looks like the ICC language
Okay.
clarifies and covers everything the state amendment did.
For mitigation planning, it's a new section here. I didn't see any reason to make an amendment to this section. So just left it as is. Should be in here. So I have in here, no, that's the next section, I'm sorry. For this one, the ICC proposal F28-21 claims no cost, and with that, I figured it's a good addition and didn't need a state amendment. What is that section? It's 403-1061 mitigation. (403-11-3) crowd managers for gatherings of exceeding 1,000 people. That's instead of that one, the model code has it for 500 people instead of 1,000. I have it in here to maintain the existing amendment. And I think that I had some questions on this one as I was reviewing it, and was thinking that the addition of 500 in here was new language. Just give me one moment to pop that in. No, it's not new language. So our amendment just changes it from 500 to 1,000 and proposing to maintain that amendment.
But the next one says 250 in 2. If you have 1,000, then you'll need 4. So 403-11.31. So that should change to 4 then, unless you want to change it 1 per 500.
Yeah, if it triggers 1,000, the 1 per 250, we're gonna have 4 minimum.
So should we highlight this section as needing a potential amendment this cycle?
Yeah, if your intent is 1,000 and not to add a burden, then you don't want to add 4 people, right?
Right. So the proposal would be for each 500 persons, one
Yes.
private manager.
I would think you would change it to a minimum of 4.
Fine, I don't know the basis of 1,000 or 500, so that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Looks
think
like
that-
previous amendment was 500 and this is changing it to 1,000. I'm sorry if I missed it, but was there's something driving that?
There was a lot of discussion at the last
Nice.
tag hearings about that, trying to come to a reasonable number to it, but I do believe the intent was to have 4 minimum.
Okay,
Okay.
then
Maybe it
change
just
the
didn't
2,
get-
yeah.
Maybe it just didn't get picked up in that last. Okay.
Yeah, it's more of an editorial correction, but yeah, it would have to be the official proposal. Or we could vote on it here.
Wait, can we take a step back here? So you're saying, Dave, that the intent was to have a 4 minimum?
Correct.
So don't you get that by this language? Because for every 250, you got to have at least 1, right?
Math
So
gets you to 4.
that
Yep.
gets you to 4. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
which is
then
one of
by
4 related.
saying 2 minimum, you're doing it, then you should delete the 2 minimum and say 1 per every 250 is what you should say, because the language is conflicting, even though in the end the math works out.
Yeah, it's
Right.
misleading to
Yeah.
say no fewer than 2 and
Right.
you'd always require 4.
I don't,
I mean, I see it as an and statement though. So it's not fewer than 2 trained crowd managers and not
Yeah.
fewer than 1. So I don't think it really hurts, but I see your point that you don't really need that first part of the sentence. But again, it's an and statement, so it's not like it's not going to get missed.
So Dave, do we have a history of why we bumped it to 1,000? That would be less than the minimum.
I think there was some testimony from crowd management companies saying it's just a burden for 500 or less. You know, it just wasn't necessarily required. And we discussed it and felt that it was reasonable to be able to go up to 1,000. Now, in my opinion, officially, I just like to go with the model code.
Is that probably why we put in there or as required by the fire code official, so we could still
Yep.
have it less
Yep.
than 1,000? Okay.
Yeah, that was what gave it back and forth, but it's still, I'm a big proponent of if the model code is good enough, why aren't we using it?
Yeah, I agree with that logic.
Agreed. Yeah.
So on this one, since it's not an existing amendment and it's not a significant change in this code cycle for the model code, I would suggest maybe we don't include it in here, but we dog ear it for our attention during proposal making time.
Why did the tag consider removing the amendment of 403.11.3?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
I'd
we're
be up for
talking
that.
about maybe repealing the overall amendment.
Does that sound like a good plan? Just go back to model code language there?
Yeah, it's been the direction with the directing of the building code council, where our effort is to go back and correct it. If we haven't made an effort to do a correction at the national level, why don't we just follow the national level?
And I think what it does, if somebody wants to push it out to 1,000, the burden is on the individual request to make sure that safety is maintained.
So here's a question then, because if we repeal it, look at exception number 1. So does that mean, I mean, if you go back to 500, but then exception 1 says not fewer than 1,000. So,
Exception 1 is allowing outdoor events. That threshold
Outdoor
would be
events.
1,000
Yeah.
instead of 500.
so the difference is outdoor events. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And the feeling I think back then was an outdoor event, you're not crowded into a building, right? Egress and exiting is typically more open. When you look at the code commentary, they're basically saying the minimum number of crowd managers would be two based on the minimum requirements of section 403.11.3, and then an additional crowd manager for every portion of 250 people after that. So that would be a minimum of 3 crowd managers for, say, a crowd of 530. I know we get a lot of pushback from this on our parks department because of the cost involved.
Now we can tell them it's state code.
Um,
Not an amendment. It's model code.
I have a concern if we went through the whole process of creating a amendment, whenever that happened, a cycle, whenever that amendment came in, that we are just pulling that amendment out without allowing public comment, significant public comment. I would feel more comfortable if for this report, we maintain that amendment, and then we can talk about repealing it after the fact, but that's part of our work moving forward.
Isn't the intent that we're just doing a recommendation to the council and then the public comment can be at the council meeting?
Yes, although I think that there's, this detailed stuff we're not going to get into the details of this. I wouldn't imagine at the council level, they're going to come back and say they want the tag to go through the conversation,
Got it.
the detailed conversation about it. If there are people that were pushing for us to go from 500 to 1,000, I would hate for this group to just take it out and go back to 500 without giving them the opportunity to have part of that conversation again. Because they convinced one of the previous IFC tags that it should be moved to 1,000, so.
Yep, I'm fine with that. I still like to push to just going to the model code where we can, but we can
Sure.
definitely hold on to it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll leave the recommendation as maintain amendment with other comments as consider repeal.
I like that.
But nothing's going to change unless somebody actually makes a code change proposal.
Correct.
So can we even have it as though the tag recommends it to be removed, but a code change proposal's going to occur? Because that's what I believe that the consensus was, that we would recommend it to get removed, but there still needs to be a code change proposal. I'm just worried that what's going to happen here is it's just going to somebody's going to forget about it.
Yeah. If it's important enough, somebody will remember, and I think I'll remember.
So then, Dave, you're putting together the code change proposal then.
As soon as I get to vote.
Okay. So I'll move on.
So I got a question for you guys then. So from can a tag member do a proposal on behalf of IFC tag?
I believe so. Looking
It's
into
been done in the past.
Yeah,
I think
some
so too. And what that does, Quinn, is that gets out there. There's a proposal and there will be
Yep.
a list of proposed changes.
Okay.
And that gets that out of, flags it for the public.
Yep. No, I agree with it. I just wanted to double check, make sure. So, okay, thanks.
Okay. So next we have lockdown plans. This whole section is not adopted, and my recommendation would be to maintain this amendment. Yeah. And 406.1. So next section, in this one, I've got that we are looking to maintain the amendment. Looks like we've completely replaced the model code language. 406.2 frequency, we do modify the model code language in there, so I'm recommending we maintain this amendment. Emergency lockdown training. We do not adopt this section, and I will recommend that we maintain that existing amendment. And then emergency shelter in place training is a state amendment, and I would be looking to maintain that one as well. And then
Just as a clarification, why we did not adopt the lockdown is because there's other state code related to that. So we did not want to conflict with what's going on from the other life safety group.
okay.
Was it that, or was it because of the state superintendent's office that each school would have their own lockdown policies and stuff?
It was a combination, but what we ran into some big issues with police. So
Got
because they deal with the lockdowns, we don't. But we
Got it.
didn't want lockdown even in our code.
All
The
right.
reason I was going to ask is, and we're not going to have time for it, but something to put a seed in your guys' thought. Something that I looked at this morning was section 917.2. So just food for thought for the next meeting.
All right, for the next section, we got 407.1. And this one, they made a modification to this one. I guess in the proposal, it's been considered that the section was misinterpreted. So no cost, no amendment needed. And yeah, that's the end of chapter 4. So are we ready to entertain a motion to move this one towards our master document?
So moved.
Second.
Who was our second? Was that Quinn?
Yeah, that's me, Quinn.
Okay, thank you.
I
Any
just need to
conversation?
discuss, I just
Go
need
ahead,
to
Ken.
discuss one thing. Can you go back to 406.1?
Yes.
And maybe I missed this in your presentation. So 406.1, your plan is to keep.
That's what I was putting through. If we have a different discussion as a group, I'd be happy to have it.
So my note said, when it says employees in the occupancies listed in section 403, my comment was need to revise because the 403 section has more than just occupancies listed. Because lithium ion batteries was added along with the other special uses listed in 403. So I think we might need to change the verbiage in there to include more than just occupancies that are in 403. So if you go back up to scroll up to 403, maybe you can see what I'm talking about here. You probably have to start at the So it has the occupancies, B occupancies, and you just keep scrolling down. E occupancies, F occupancies, H.
M, R.
Yeah, keep going. And so
I think what Ken is talking
special,
about
the
is,
special uses section right there.
yeah, and especially 0.6. There's a new section. I mean, here it already talks about evacuation. I mean, the training.
Yeah, I just don't know if we're in conflict or not. That's the reason I just made the note that maybe we say occupancies and special uses in our amendment in 406.1.
So let's see, and so what was the suggestion there?
So go to 406.1.
Okay.
And in 406.1, talks about employees in the occupancies and special uses listed in 403 shall be trained in emergency procedures.
Or just uses, because I thought there was outdoor also addressed
Okay.
there, right?
Yeah, I like the word I was looking at as well. I think uses would be fine.
Okay.
So as kind of depicted right there, I'm not gonna leave and uses in there, but employees in the occupancies and uses listed in section 403 shall be trained. So we would need to amend this section. Maintain the amendment.
What was the history behind changing that first part of that sentence on the model code? Because it seems like employees is kind of redundant because it's already in the title page, that the title section, employee training. Whereas like where fire safety and evacuation plans are required, that would encompass everything.
Yeah, I don't have an answer.
The
So I would,
distinction would be employee versus contractor.
but you already talked, your 406 is already talking about the employee though.
Typically, we don't look at the title as a charter. We start from 406.1. If it says employees there, that's when we look at. I generally don't look at the title for charting language.
But if you look at the model language after it says, where's fire safety and evacuation plans required by section 403, comma, employees shall be trained. So you're kind of talking about employees right there. So the only section part that I think is pertinent is that last part of that sentence where it says section 406.2 through 406.35. That's different from the model code, but the rest, I mean, we could always maintain the model code and just keep that change at the end. That would be what I would recommend.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that too.
I agree. I think the model code's reference to 403 is a little more broad and clear.
Yeah.
Because I'm like Dave, where like the less we could change from the model code, the better.
Agreed.
So would we recommend to repeal this amendment and go with model code language?
No, you still have to add the sections, right?
Yeah, you still got to add the as described in sections 406.2 through 406.35.
Yeah, we just need to replace 404 in the model code language with 406.2 to 406.3.5.
So it'll be in accordance with section 406.2.
Does the 406.4 now, does that have to be modified? It says 406.31 through 406.314.
No, I think that's still good. That's the model code language. Yeah, that's still good, Hugo.
Right. Yeah.
So this is just a suggestion on what we would want to include for modification to the amendment. So
Yes.
where fire and safety evacuation plans are required by section 403, employees shall be trained in fire emergency procedures based on plans prepared as described in sections 406.2 through 406.3.5.
Actually, it should be 406.4.5. Something changed through the last
No,
cycle.
words formatting got you, Dustin. Your recommendation is 406.2 right now. You just need to backspace on that, I think.
And also 406.4 is actually 406.3 in the model code.
Yeah,
Right.
once he deletes the 406.2 that
renumber.
word inserted on his recommendation, it'll.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Where's 406.4.5?
It's actually
Further down.
yeah.
Yeah. Can you delete that?
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Dustin.
So I'm not following what the suggestion is here.
Word
406
auto. Oh,
Sorry, we confused you.
yeah.
Is it looking good now, or do I need to change it to 406.3.5 or
It should be 0.3.5 and then go up to before the R in your recommendation bold highlight sentence there. If you go and just backspace to get rid of the 406.2 that word inserted on you.
406.2? Oh man, for some reason I'm not seeing it.
The gray highlighted where you have your recommendation.
Cursor, yeah.
Okay.
Existing amendment.
So essentially, if you
just
take
need to delete this, Dustin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you delete
Cross that out.
406.2, the 406.3 becomes
Oh, I see.
406.2.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah, get that to go away.
There we go.
This is what happens
number
when you
shouldn't have been there in the first
Yeah,
place. That
yes,
probably
yes.
jacked up the numbers all the way throughout the whole document.
Yeah.
3 hours of code with no break. Thanks, Roger.
255. Crazy.
All right.
So I believe we have a motion and a second. Ken had some additional discussion. Are we done with that discussion?
I believe so. I don't have anything else to bring up.
Okay, then I am going to ask for all those in favor to say aye.
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 Any opposed? So that passes. Dustin, can you bring up the spreadsheet that you have that has the where we're at? Yeah, there we go. So we've got those right there. We've got 5, 6, 36, 39, 41, 49. We've got a few to go through yet.
Yeah. Do we want to move, just say the appendixes are ready to go, since we have no amendments in there? Do we want to look at any of those as part of our review? I think Appendix O was kind of brought up today. Hugo?
Yeah, I'm sorry to back up a little bit. So I'm looking on the ICC code for the 24 version, and the last code section terminates at 406.3.4. And so I was reading what you had, and there was a lot more numerical context to that section that I wasn't finding.
I'm gonna jump off, guys. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Thank you, Ricky.
3.5 is a state ad.
Okay.
And then we go to 407.
So, okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Part the reason I wanted to ask about the schedule is we have two hours next Tuesday blocked out right now. And theoretically, we are supposed to be done before Friday the 14th, which is when is that correct, Dustin? Friday the 14th is when the standing committee meeting is?
Yes, sir.
And so I am questioning whether we're going to get done in 3 more hours. Do we want to try to fit in another meeting at some point?
I think if we had another meeting like this, we should be able to get finish the rest of the chapters as far as an initial review. And so let's see. There's not a whole lot of room for additional meetings in here. And staff does need some time to incorporate all this into the master document. We've been working towards that one. There's not a whole lot of editing that has to happen on that as far as the content, but we just a lot of inserting of that model code text and state amendment text in between these lines is kind of the big push here. So looking to the future for what we have going here, we have as far as days that don't have any other tag meetings in them, we have this Friday and we have Wednesday next week, the 12th, that we could throw another meeting in here. As far as the tomorrow, there's a building tag meeting at 1:30. Same for Thursday. We have another building tag meeting, and there's another building tag meeting built in on the 13th as well. So
we could also add an hour to Tuesday the 11th potentially.
Yes,
we went 3 hours today, so that would give us one more 3 hour. But I kind of agree. I think if we had one more, we had the 3 hours on Tuesday. If we could fit in one other meeting, at least 2 hours, we would be pretty darn close to getting through.
I'm okay with Friday afternoon, even though that's a bad timing. That's a bit, I have availability at that time.
Yeah, I'm also available Friday, all day Friday, so, and Monday.
I've got Friday and Monday, the next 2 coming up that I could squeeze in another meeting.
Friday works for me too. Monday, not so much, but I'll do what I can.
I can work this Friday. I'm not available in the morning for a block of time that would probably interfere with a 3-hour meeting. But Friday afternoon, I am available.
So if all are available Friday, I would rather do 2 hours Friday and 2 hours Tuesday than extend for 3. And then if we need to, we can extend.
And we also have the, I mean, we could set a placeholder for a meeting maybe on Thursday, the day before the committee meetings, to finalize the final document. We could schedule it for 2 hours. I'd say I would like to meet on Friday, 2 hours, meet 2 hours Monday, and maybe have a placeholder on the Thursday before the committee meetings to finalize the master document.
Friday and Tuesday. You said
Tuesday.
Monday. Tuesday, yeah.
I meant Thursday. I'm sorry.
So
yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Meet Friday afternoon, meet next Tuesday afternoon, and then if we have to squeeze in something else, we can.
Yep.
Okay. And does 1 o'clock work for everybody on this Friday?
Yeah.
Yes.
1 to 3.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm questionable. I will be visiting family. I'll see if I can break away. But that's fine. And Dustin, we will need to publish it, the meeting.
Yes.
Put it
So
out on the
that'll be
website.
one thing that'll happen like right away is you'll get the meeting invite. And then with the documents that I didn't distribute today, I'll get those posted on the future meeting pages for everybody to review. And then I got some stuff just before the meeting today, I think on chapter 10 and 11 from Lance. I have to double check my email. I haven't incorporated it into our folders yet, but and I think the chapter 40 and chapter 50 have no amendments. I'm not sure why we didn't get to them on the 28th. But we should probably be able to get through those ones pretty quick as well. So yeah. So I'll get you guys the chapters that I have on board for the website on the Friday meeting, and then we'll go ahead and preload them for the 11th, and we'll wait on the 11th. We'll check in and see if we need to have something on the 13th. Does that sound like a plan?
Okay,
Yep.
well then I will close the meeting, and I thank everybody. That's a lot of great work.
Right, thank you.
I got an other business really quick, as it was on the agenda.
Okay, go ahead.
Dustin, do we have a timeline of the emergency rule that was drafted and then those
been filed.
editorial changes?
It's been filed. I'm waiting to get that document back from the state register, and as soon as I get that one back, I'll be posting it on our website for the news.
But is it on the WSR as a filed document yet?
Yes.
Okay, because
I mean,
okay.
I filed it last week, and we're still waiting on it. That is the end of last week, so I'm waiting on WSR to process it. They may not have it on their website yet. I could post the Word document in the OTS, but I'm looking to post the stamped WSR document.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Take
Dustin,
care.
Thanks.
Dustin, if
Have a
you
good
could
one.
hang on for a minute, I wanted to double
Not a
check
problem.
my editing on 49.
Hang out for you.
All right,
Thanks,
take care,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Dustin, just wanted